Hello, and welcome to Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We want to keep shining light on rugby that is not shown in the mainstream media. I'm Carl. Thanks for joining us on the next instalment of Rugby Through the Leagues. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod and keep in touch with us on our social media platforms. We have some more amazing guests lined up in the coming weeks, and we really don't want you to miss out on them. Firstly, a bit of an update around the podcast. Over the next few weeks, I'm out travelling around, so the intros and outros will be a bit shorter and straight into the interviews. We will still be releasing every week, so don't worry about that. All of the interviews have been pre-recorded ahead of time to make it easier for me while I'm travelling around, which means some of the topics are out of date and have had their resolutions found, hopefully, but we still get to see the raw responses from our guests before the outcomes have been resolved. So this week, we have Kiano Fourie on from Rugby India. I've been so excited to get this one out and released and get to talk about the game in India and where it's going. But first, a quick recap of the results this weekend and what a weekend of rugby it was. With the Olympic Sevens women's repechage won by China, Olympic Sevens men's repechage won by South Africa, beating Great Britain in the final. England beat Japan with a very lacklustre performance. I think a lot of positives and negatives out of certain parts of that game, but win's a win, so you keep on moving. South Africa obviously put Wales to the sword in the double-header, with the Barbars then beating Fiji with an exquisite show of flamboyant rugby from both sides. Trinidad managed to beat Guyana 26-3 as well. The UAE gave Malaysia a 62-19 pumping in the Rugby Asia Championships. Hong Kong China also beat South Korea to win the Asia Rugby Championship, gave South Korea 67-7 pumping. Gloucester Hartbury asserted their dominance with an amazing second half comeback to win the PWR title against Bristol at Sandy Park. The Blues won Super Rugby with a 41-10 victory over the Chiefs. URC finished up with Glasgow beating the Bulls out in Pretoria. Top 14 has a final set up between Toulouse and Bordeaux after Toulouse beat La Rochelle and Bordeaux overcome Stade Francais. So, quick run through there. We've got some amazing games coming up in the coming weeks. And obviously, we'll keep in touch with them over our socials rather than doing intros and outros through the pod to make sure that you guys are in touch with everything. But now let's get into the interview with Kiano. It's another belter, great one. Really interesting to see the passion for rugby outside of everywhere else. So let's get into it. It's a great one. Well, this week we have Kiano on from Rugby India. Me and Kiano had a little meeting the other week, didn't we? Had a little sort of catch up, got a bit of a download of the story and the events over there, and absolutely fell in love with the story. Couldn't wait to get him on the pod. Now finally able to get him on, do the conversation around where his rugby journey started, and also where he is in India at the minute, and the forecast for India rugby to try and hopefully take over the world as Kiano. Is that a fair cop?
Yeah, no, that's certainly the mission and the dream, honestly.
So thank you so much for your time, mate, for coming on. Could you share your journey? Because I'm originally from South Africa, is that correct?
Yes. Firstly, thank you for having me on the pod. It's something I was really looking forward to, and always good to just talk rugby, man. It's the chats that really also off the field that are part of the game too.
100%, yeah. So it's brilliant to get you on, mate. So really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I mean, just to start off, so my name's Kiano Fourie. I am 22 years old at the moment, and I am a high performance coach for Rugby India. I work in and around the union, in the SNC, with the scouting and with the hands-on coaching itself. I've worked with various teams, the men's 15s particularly, the men's 7s, the junior 7s women, as well as some here and there work with the senior women's 7s team. Overall, just looking to make a difference any way that I can over here. But to take you into the story, is I grew up in South Africa and didn't know much of rugby up until about grade 7, just before high school. Some friends of mine had started playing for the high school, so I thought I'd join in. And then that's when I met this great figure in my life, Mr. Anton Venter, who he phenomenal man. And honestly, the way he teaches you about the game, you really fall in love with it. And he said a lot of life's lessons you can learn from the game of rugby. And from then, I was pretty much sold. And then I knew exactly where I was going to end up going to high school. I knew I needed to be in that school, and went through there, joined the teams, and went through it all. And just the passion hadn't necessarily kicked in, but the desire and the want to be a part of the sport was there. From about year 10, when we started getting into the provincial systems and stuff, and we started going for trials and everything, then the passion naturally like geared up, because we started seeing it as potential, as something we could do.
Yeah.
Going a bit further, then throughout the years, then started playing a bit more, got involved in the club systems, started playing more locally for the school, as well as in the clubs, with a mix of all the different schools in the area. And then from there on, we just really just enjoyed playing rugby, man, and just trying to take it as far as possible. And then post high school, I had joined. We have a rugby academy in South Africa, a 7 specific rugby academy, SA All Stars, where we basically you join up after school, you get trained up, and then there's opportunities throughout the network worldwide. So from this, essentially from this network, then keeping in mind post when I left school 2019, at 2020, the first year out, it was COVID. So we went straight into lockdown, which then proceeded for another 2 years, which kind of put a dampener on the whole experience of like now playing club rugby outside of school and getting to see what all of that was like. So the opportunities were scarce, and it was a bit tough to keep the ball rolling, especially with financial situations and everything. You've got to at some point you got to start making decisions about what you can do and how you can keep it going and keep the dream alive. And then 2022 early May, I had been approached by my coach at the time, and he had done some work. He himself is an international coach. He's worked with a couple teams throughout Africa, as well as namely India for a decent amount of time, about 5-6 years. And he had approached a friend of mine and myself that were in the academy, and he spoke to us about an opportunity to go over to India and coach a state team, Bihar, in Patna. So, which was quite the experience, man. As a first timer coming to India, Bihar was certainly a bit of a shock. Just because you really see the dead honest life there. Like it's simple, cut and dry. You gotta be putting up if you're gonna get anything out. Like you have to definitely put your worth in the game. And so I mean, we came over with no idea what to expect, and then we found the same characteristics. We found a field that we called it at the time within a stadium. We saw the oval shaped ball that we knew, and then we knew that there was something that we could get going here. So then we got into it, and for that tournament, which is their senior junior nationals, where they do selection for the national team essentially. Every year, the 28, 29 states of India all put up a team, under 18, boys and girls, and senior men, senior women. They all come to this tournament, and they compete it out, about 50, 60 matches a day, just absolutely just going at it. It's quite something to watch.
What a spectacle for the game that must be to see. Because we briefly touched on it before as well, because they're hopefully going to tweak that slightly as well. Is that correct? Because it's, as you said, 50, 60 games a day is quite a lot to get round and try and get covered off, and everyone put their
Yes.
best foot forward.
No, it is certainly a bit of a push at the moment. But I mean, every year we do look at changing up the more or less the formation and how we
Yeah,
schedule the matches and everything. So sometimes we'll spread the tournament across 3 days, or sometimes across four, sometimes across two, but with different types of pool settings and everything. So we're trying
yeah,
to find the right combination that can, accommodate so many teams in this one tournament. But it's just it's a growing game over here, so we do have the time to like try things out and
yeah.
find out what'll work for this specific environment. And additionally, we do also have the benefit of a much more condensed and smaller tournament. So from this tournament, the 28 to 29 states that arrive, then post the end of the tournament, there's a top 8 ranking on the senior men's and the senior women's side, who will
Yeah.
then go on, and they usually end up playing at this tournament locally called the National Games. So the
Okay.
National Games is somewhat, you could look at it as if it was India's internal Olympics, I would like to say,
Okay. Well.
because they put up the top 8 teams from whichever states,
Yeah.
ranks 1 to 8, and then they all go and hash it out for a week, 2 weeks in whichever state is hosting it at the time. This year, I believe Uttarakhand is hosting it, so it's a state up north.
Okay.
And last year we were hosted in Goa, which was out to the west, which was a bit more tropical. So you get
Yeah.
with the moving tournaments and everything, you get to experience all the different climates and settings of India, which is also a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I can imagine. At least, as you said, they'll also pretty much be able to adapt to any climate around the world then as well. So that's probably not a bad way of being able to move around and make benefit of what India's got to offer within internal systems as well. So because you obviously with the sevens tour, they pretty much go here, there, and everywhere in the world as well. So they've got different sort of climates to adapt to. Is that pretty much already covered off within the basically within India? It's your own training center effectively.
Yeah, I mean, within India itself, we have a bit of everything. We have parts that are cold and snowy. We have parts that are hilly and beautiful mountain
Yeah,
landscapes. We have the tropical, the coast side. We have your drier desert type setups, and it's completely all over the place over here. But
yeah,
truly, you can get a great experience of all.
that's amazing. So with the national trials, then does that mean that the international team changes each year? Is there the players that are pretty much there or thereabouts every year? They're in the right team to put themselves in the right shop window, or similar to what the England football team Gareth Southgate said about players are picked on current form rather than who they know and what they knew before.
Yeah, to give it to you bluntly and direct, I mean, from the most amount of time that's been, say in the past decade, there has been a great reoccurrence of players that have come into the team.
Yeah,
Um, purely, I would like to say, because I believe they reached a certain level,
yeah,
and they best maintained it. And certain centers within India are just better developed in terms of their coaching procedures, or how they look after players and player retention, and all of these factors that put into which teams show up at the tournament every year.
yeah,
So gradually, as we've seen and heard over the years, the tournament has improved, especially amongst the smaller states, which is
yeah,
ideally the focus when it comes to the tournament time, because we already know the top 8. We know more or less which teams are going to show up. We know they're prepared. We know they're ready. So now we're looking at seeing which of these teams are now on the smaller side of the setup, which of them are improving. But in terms of the current national team, we are pretty much we're heavily reliant on, say, our states like Odisha, Maharashtra, Haryana, and Delhi. these and as well as West Bengal. These few states seem to make up the general greater percentages of the teams selected and that are going abroad and representing the national team. But we would like to see this changing over time. We've seen states like Rajasthan has started to bolster with talent, and they've just been coming out of the works there. And we're seeing smaller states as well, like Bangalore, start putting in some interesting players. So it's Goa as well. So it's nice to now see over time we try to get, just a couple new faces into the camps each time. And hopefully, through that experience and everything, at least they go home with, okay, now I know what the level is I need to be at. So when they go home, you're a bit more inspired and you have a bit more of an idea of what is it going to take to, hang out with these guys and then hopefully make the team one day and wear that jersey with them.
That's amazing. So what do you think has been the change? Has there been sort of coaches come out from Rugby India, the sport in those different states, etc., or has a bit more money gone into the game in India, which has brought in better coaches for those regions? What's been the change from your opinion?
The change, honestly, in my opinion, is I think that the sport itself, once you've experienced it and you've actually been able to take part in it in whatever form, whether you're just an official on the day, just running up and down with the flag, or if you're actually playing the game, or if you get the opportunity to pick up a coaching job, then for a lot of the people, once they experience the sport, then it the rest is all said and done. You know how that goes. So I think the biggest thing in India is awareness of the sport. Is we still find it, even after all of this, even after having hosted the Commonwealth in 2010-11, is we still find people are unaware of rugby. And so the biggest thing for us at the moment is growing the awareness, because we know for a fact, and you can see it all over the world, once people see the oval ball, once they touch the ball, once they play, and they've experienced those first few moments of rugby, very few people actually turn away from it. So the mission is just to grow the awareness, and we know the rest will come. We know the people who want to be on the coaching side of it will step up. We know the people that want to play will get into what they need to, and then we find all forms of people. Someone just genuinely wants to be a physio because they want to be a part of being a physio for the exciting sport of rugby. So it's awareness, I would say, and secondly, it's got to be achievement for sure. A lot of the time, from what I've noticed, is here when you bring the medal, you get the attention. So the second, I know for a fact, the second we secure that gold medal, that elusive gold medal that we're still chasing, once we get that and it makes it into the newspaper, and rugby is seen as a viable option to anybody who may come across that newspaper article, who may find it on the internet or whatever, we know that by them knowing that, okay, we've gotten a gold medal, it's a viable option, it is something I can turn into a career, then we'll see all sorts of numbers coming in. You'll see people that want to be coaches because they also might want to get the next gold medal. You'll see the players that want to come in because they believe they can help us get the next gold medal, and so on and so forth.
Because with a population of, what is it, roughly 1.2 billion in India?
1.2, 1.4, around there.
So not a bad player pool availability. If you could tap into a certain percentage of that, there's a fair few to get at. And is it really promoted in schools? Is it part of the school system in India, or is that something that's the next sort of push for Rugby India?
Yeah, I believe the getting it more known as a school sport is definitely within the next few cards, and something we need to look at. In terms of, we do have some younger tournaments. We do have our SGIF under 15 tournament. Well, originally it was under 14, so we had just done touch up until this point, and from next year we'll have under 15s, and it'll be contact. So we're introducing contact a bit sooner, and which will then have effects later down the line. And in terms of the schools, we do have an under 19 tournament that takes place, but not necessarily. It's more like, again, it's a thing of awareness. So not many schools are aware that this is a sport that, we can also include along with swimming, cricket, soccer. So
Yeah,
once we get rugby into those conversations, and rugby is seen as it is a sport, it is something we should have available, and the interest is there from, like, maybe parents asking for the inclusion of the sport, or play
yeah,
enough people and players and kids knowing about it, then we'll definitely see it get into the schools. But it's a process, and I believe our development team is looking at getting it in the mix of schools and a part of the extramural curriculum.
yeah. That's brilliant. So obviously, as you said, the gold medal is a target to try and put rugby in the shop window in India. We discussed briefly the other day. What is the target? Where, because sevens is really good for yourselves at the minute. You've got a really good development system within the sevens, and that's probably where you can potentially hang your flat your hat on at the minute. Is what's the target for the gold medal? Where's that going to come from?
The current target for the gold medal is our continental championship, which is the Asia Championship. So we, being in India, we fall under Asia Rugby.
Yeah,
So we take part in their annual ARST tournament, Asia Rugby Sevens tournament,
yeah,
which is the second tier in. So you have the ARSS, which is where your Japan, China, Hong Kong, Korea, all of them are competing around up there. So
yeah.
there's the top 8 teams over there. So ARST is the qualifying tournament to get to that. So you get a gold medal here, then you get
Hmm.
promoted to this tournament ARSS, which is a 3-leg tournament throughout the year. Where
Oh wow.
ARST, we have a once-off tournament.
Yeah.
This year being hosted in Kathmandu, Nepal. So
Oh, okay.
that is essentially where all eyes are focused, and all efforts are going towards the gold medal on either the women or the men's side.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can, hop into the ring of ARSS and really get a look at the level up there.
So obviously, when's that tournament?
That tournament is looking to be about 4 to 6 October.
Oh, okay. Hopefully, we can see a gold medal come out from both. Let's target both for the men's and the
Yeah,
women's at least. So that'd
definitely,
be
definitely. That's the
so.
dream.
Obviously, after that, then what's the sort of the forecast? Because we spoke about you've got a tournament coming that was 2026
Yeah,
was the
so
next.
the if I'm gonna go in the next order that's coming up, I believe 2026 should be the next Asian Games,
Yeah.
which we're not too sure where that'll be hosted yet, but Asian Games. Then you have 2028, which will be, I believe, Los Angeles Olympics. But we're from our belief, I'm not too sure if we're still pushing for that one necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, then shooting a bit further ahead, we know for a fact that 2036, the Olympics should be coming to India.
Wow.
So based off of that, we know that, by 2036, you don't want to be the host nation that just gets walked over. So you want to be the host nation where we actually surprise a lot of people, and we already have momentum and awareness abroad about, what, you're coming to a place with a really good team.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate vision is with the sevens, it being an Olympic sport, is that you want to be at the Olympics. That's the entire point of having that dream, is
Yeah.
you want to get to that tournament. You want to get to those games, and you want to experience that environment. So we have a lot of athletes, from India that already compete in the Olympics. So
Yeah.
for us, it's just from the sevens perspective. We just want to see our men and women in those jerseys at the Olympics with the rings.
On their home turf as well. That will
Yeah.
be absolutely phenomenal to see. So sevens it has a sort of a glide path planned out for it in India. What's the 15s game look like? Is that a little bit further behind?
The 15s is certainly a bit further behind. We do have, strangely, I had found out, there's a club here in India, CCNFC, in West Bengal, Kolkata. So
Hmm.
they are. I believe they were founded in 1872. So I
Wow.
think, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, they are the eldest rugby club outside of England.
Yeah,
So
Christ.
it was a club established a very long time ago, and they've played rugby for a very long time. You have a team in Mumbai, Bombay Gymkhana, who is about
Yeah.
125 years old. So
Wow.
there is teams out here who have that 15s culture, but again, it seemed to have become more of a niche sport.
Yeah.
The focus shifted to the sevens, with the Commonwealth back way back when.
Yeah.
So the 15 sort of seemed to take a bit of a back seat. So to my knowledge, the current 15s is a step behind, and from the experience I've seen, it's definitely something that our head coach Nas Botha is looking forward to, ramping up things again, as now we have joined the Division 1 tournament with the
Hmm.
likes of Sri Lanka, Kazakhstan, and Qatar. Um, so we're looking to stay in this competition, but we know that in this competition, it's going to take certain variables like setting up our own league,
Yeah.
and having this league played every year for at least 2 to 3 months, where we're getting these guys playing a lot more 15s, not just within the teams they can readily reach in their district, but at the
Yeah.
same time to play a variety of teams, and really get contests throughout a proper season. Instead of currently, we have about a 1 week tournament for the teams divided up in divisions 1, 2, and 3. And at these tournaments, the teams play about 4 matches in a week, which anybody for 15s knows that is absolutely like horrendous on the body. Like, you will
Yeah.
be livid by the end of that. So we are looking at changing the format, but again, it's a learning process, and I think
Progress.
that,
Yeah.
with time, and with a bit more energy, because 15s as well is not an Olympic sport.
Hmm.
Therefore, we don't necessarily get government funding for it. So the
Right.
15s we have to fund entirely on our own as the federation, which can be a very costly endeavor.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something we're looking at, gaining a few more sponsors for, and hopefully getting people to see that, what our 15s is. Look at where they're at with what we've been able to do on our own.
Mm.
So if we had a bit more support in terms of our 15s, or we were able to set up certain structures,
Yeah.
then we won't have the same answers of, look, we only had a 3 week camp following a 1 week tournament for selection. Then it
Yeah.
becomes we've seen these players throughout a season. Then we took them into a camp. Now we're at your tournament. So we know we're ready. So
Yeah.
that changes the entire conversation about the 15s.
Yeah. Because as you mentioned the other day that they've got sort of mini leagues within their own sort of states. Is that correct? So, and then they obviously all sort of convene for that state state tournament at the end, which 4 games in a week for 15. I doubt there's many props that survive that. They must have a whole list of props just queued up, ready to come on to play the next
Yeah,
game.
no. So within the states themselves, these clubs will play it out for however many games they seem to organize within their own. Again, it seems to be completely left up to the clubs themselves, who are
Yeah.
who are running their internal systems. So
Right.
you'll have, to give you an example, like CCFC and Kolkata will play against Jungle Crows and Harlequins, the
Right.
the two other teams there, and then they'll play in the Calcutta Cup. Actually, funny enough, is
Yeah.
they had shown us the trophy that they have there, and then they
Right.
walked us through the history of the connection between there and the UK.
Yeah.
Um, so that's more their local competition. Then they have the Centenary Cup as well, where they also play. But again, just those teams are playing in it, Then additionally, you'll have, say, in Maharashtra, in Bombay, they'll
Mm.
play. Gymkhana will play against the Maharashtra State Police, and
Okay.
they'll play against it's a mix of teams, but again, it's club sides that are just getting some reps in against each other.
Yeah.
But then from there on, after they've hashed it out a bit, maybe 3, 4, 5 games, like actual games that are
Yeah.
supposed to be deciders of some sort of trophy or achievement, then at some point in the year we all get together at the Division 1, 2, or the 3, and then you see a bit more of a. Then you get to see teams from this side of India play against teams from that side. Then you really see the mix of the teams, you know.
You also said some of the facilities and the pitches are probably not very set up at the minute as well. You made a little anecdote the other day that when you managed to teach the sevens how to dive for a try, because most of them have got used to just dotting the ball down rather than diving down on certain pitches. Do you think that's something that's obviously got to be developed as well before the game can grow properly?
Yeah, I mean, with the sports of rugby, one of those signals that tell you like this is where rugby played is when you
Yeah,
see the uprights. You know,
yeah,
if you're on your way somewhere and you see this formation and you're wondering what is this thing, and then you go a bit closer and then you see
yeah,
someone running around on like a marked field with an oval ball,
yeah,
then the mind starts going and you're like, oh, okay, maybe let me find out what this is. So the biggest thing in terms another side of growing the game is establishing centers and establishing places where this is for rugby. It's
yeah,
a bit of a statement, to have the uprights, and for a couple of the states and districts and the different villages and stuff, it's a very different reality where you're playing on sand, or you've made your own uprights from some wood that you found laying around, and then at the least you may have a rugby ball. So for a lot of
oh,
them, a harsh reality is that they don't have necessarily the same facilities that most people may take for granted anywhere else in the world. For a lot of them, when they go abroad and they see some of the stadiums we get to play at, is
yeah,
the first time you see them actually like you see them experience and like feel that actual energy and that vibe that comes from rugby, because you're in that environment. So it's not, you didn't run a camp with soccer posts and then you saw uprights. You
yeah.
knew that this field, this stadium, the intention here is rugby. So I would say I would definitely look forward to seeing, more uprights put up all over the place
Yeah.
and see the sport grow and see designated places for the sport to grow.
That's the thing. It's when you see little kids are kicking, they're kicking for the posts all the time, and then that's the engagement, and that's the bit that will help the game develop over there. So obviously, you just mentioned on there, some of them haven't got balls to play with. How do they adapt that? Do they just do as what they can? They've obviously got the bug for the game, and they're trying to adapt it. It's just, how can you replicate that ovalness as well? Do you know what I mean? That's a hell of a lot of tape if it is anything.
Yeah,
Well,
it could. I haven't had too much experience of more in the district and the village setups as well.
yeah,
I've more just worked in the state environment where we know that we tell them in terms of an equipment list, these are certain things that we need, and
yeah,
they themselves are also aware of this. At the smaller, from my understanding, like in the districts and stuff, you know of, there's maybe one guy who he's running his academy, and he
yeah.
knows that, what, I need rugby balls. So this is probably one of the first things that he buys, and then eventually he works up and he'll get some cones, and then he'll maybe get a ball bag, and then he'll get himself
Wow.
a whistle, and so it's more of a thing of the the ball. They get the ball. Once you
Yeah.
have the ball, then
The
whatever
rest of it
ground we're
goes.
working with, wherever we are, wherever we may be, we're gonna make it work. We're
Yeah.
gonna get the basics of rugby down, and then we're gonna get things going.
Yeah, that's amazing. So obviously, Olympics 2036 then is the big target. What's potentially the target for the 15s? Are they going to sort of say another 4 to 8 years after that, or can you see that accelerating the catch up with the sevens within that time period as well?
The 15s, realistically, I want to say and take it back to the establishment of our league system. Once we have the league system, and I would say within about 2 to 3 years, when we become a real contender in Asia,
Yeah.
then because ultimately we have to first look around us, and we have to say, you know what, we have to be able to take shots and know the people around us. So
Yeah.
take on the likes of Sri Lanka, who are a well-recognized side in terms of their rugby. Then
Yeah.
we know, you know what, we need to be able to square up and get into a match with China 15s and Japan 15s and whoever, UAE, UAE, Hong Kong, Malaysia. These are all very good 15 sides within our competition. But we need to first square up against these guys and get a couple wins and a couple losses under the belt against them.
Yeah.
Learn a couple lessons. So in terms of the timeline, I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number, but I could definitely say that it looks like we need to get face to face with a couple of these people. We grow from experience. Anybody that knows is, you can train as much as you want and you can put as much hours in the gym as you want, but the biggest place that you learn those lessons is in a match. It's in those 80 minutes. By the end of it, you're like, okay, cool. So this is actually what it feels like to have genuine pressure coming at me. And then to know that, Malaysia plays like this, Hong Kong plays like this, Japan plays like this. Once you start experiencing this variety of styles of play and everything, then you start to see the players really, really come a bit together. You see your system develop and further. So the biggest thing is, I would say the target now is not necessarily a specific competition or year, but it's definitely experience is going to be our biggest target now, is to get these guys repped out and playing as many games as they can. Just build up the hours.
So the 15s then, do they have a brand of rugby that they've already got in place? What could you compare the way that they play rugby to at the minute? Have they free flowing rugby, or is it still let's just go through the processes, or have you got some players that could probably stand out in a sort of other regions, shall we say?
In terms of how they play, it's actually it's a very interesting question, because what you find throughout India is geographically, there's physically, the players are built very, very different. Like the type of people you come across is very different. So if you're playing, if you're a team from the eastern side, so you're from an Odisha or a West Bengal, they tend to be a little bit smaller but a lot faster. So from them, you'll see a bit more of a dynamic game. You're going to see the ball making it side to side. It's going out to the wing with a couple carries if they do have the big boys available. But more so, they're playing, I want to say, with a bit more flair. There's a higher level of skill, a lot less like crash and bash. Then if you're looking at the northwestern side, you start seeing that more physical game come in, because these are the taller, larger physical makeup like people of India. So you see this variety within the different regions, and then when we put them in a team together, then obviously the way that they play comes down to however the coach has seen that, this is with the team, with the players we have, this is how he believes we should play. But yeah, it's definitely, and individually there is a couple players, man. Seriously, there's a couple players who you would love to see them get an opportunity abroad. You would love to just hear about them, hop into this tournament and see, how do you do? Go and experience a tournament in Europe and see what it's like playing with a Swede and a guy from Amsterdam and someone from Germany. Because again, experience. So for a couple of them, there is 2, 3, 4 guys I could say would definitely, even on the women's side as well. There's some really good female players who I believe would do great in a European league and just to get a chance there. But
there's no pathway for them to make that accessible. Is there many scouts that sort of wandering around? You sort of, the coaches are all in a WhatsApp group sending stuff to European coaches, say, come take a look at this player, or is it not there yet?
No, I do. In terms of that sort of setup, we're not necessarily there yet, but it would always be something that we look forward to because with that opportunity, it could also bring a betterment of living standards and like
Mm.
the way a lot of people in terms of the rugby, we're not necessarily in a position to directly help them out
Yeah,
as per se in terms of our compensation,
yeah,
but with time we're hoping to get there, and we definitely know that it is a dream, and it is the mission is to be able to turn the sport into a career.
yeah.
There's indirect benefits where, say, you get a certificate or something, then you are able to get job placement um,
Oh, okay.
from the certificate. So there is government recognition and state recognition in terms of certain achievements, like
Yeah,
representing the national team or getting a medal at this tournament. So there is some sort of return,
yeah,
but in terms of bringing that career feeling to the sport, where they know, like, this is actually my job. It's not something I'm doing to get a job.
yeah,
Then that's definitely where, for the time being, we would obviously have to look at sending players abroad and getting them opportunities outside, and just growing the game outside while bringing them back in, and then having all that experience and those opportunities just flood back into India as well.
as you said, that'll also be similar to a sort of a gold medal ticket, wouldn't it? If you've got a player that's gone and played in, say, England or France and stuff like that,
Mm.
that'll be a big way of probably getting the sort of the general public on side and understanding that this game is a viable option. And but at the minute, rugby is very much an amateur sport in India at the minute. There's no sort of professional level apart from certain state benefits. Is that's where it is at the minute? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say we somewhere between amateur and semi-pro.
Right.
The
Okay.
the transition is well on its way, and there is some sort of pay that we are able to do internally for players
Hmm.
within camp.
Right.
So there is a day rate, and per cut you make it past, and for like touring, when you make the touring team, when you're
Yeah.
playing everything. So there is some sort of give back, but it's not necessarily where we would want it to be. So
Yeah.
we don't technically look at it as if we're really giving them something sustainable, because on a month to month basis outside of the camps, that may not be there.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll get there. But in terms of the turnaround, once they if we do, that's why we're so motivated to get the results, is because we know the impact that can have on taking care of them in that time when they're not with us.
Yeah.
um and yeah, namely, actually, as you mentioned, so we did have a player who, um I believe he's played in the UK, and he played in Japan a bit for Sangaliath. So he was the one guy that did make it out, and he definitely got some opportunity abroad. Rishi, I still need to look into him a bit more and learn a bit about him, but
Yeah.
I do know we had a guy who definitely got out and
Oh
played a
wow.
bit around.
Did he has he made it back to sort of come and spread the word, or is he still out on his own journey separately at the minute?
I think he's still out on his own journey, honestly.
Fair play. No, well, obviously, if that happens a few more times as well, and then the players are able to bring that back at the national stage, that will help spread the word as well within the game. So the current club structure then obviously is they play within their states, then they come back for a sort of a national trials, etc., etc. What is the ideal vision for India? Because obviously 28 states is, or 27, is it 27 or 28?
28, 29. It's
28. So it's quite a large coverage. Is there
mm.
going to be sort of an east and a west, and then like an ultimate final? Or I know it's all still being planned, but how would you say geographically it would need to be split up, or would it be split into quarters and then they have a final sort of
for
tournament
the
period?
15s.
Yeah, for the club game to try and bring the states together, as you
Mm.
said, with the league, because like it's we've got the issue in Spain at the minute, the Division de Honor A and the Division de Honor B. The teams in the Division de Honor B don't want to. I think it's 15 or 16 teams within that league process. At least 12 or 13 of them have turned around to the federation and said, we don't want to be promoted to Division D on A, even if we win the
wow.
league, because of the travel in between a lot of it at the minute. Like, I live down near Alicante. To get to Madrid is 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. So to go up to Bilbao, you're looking at a 9-hour journey on a coach. So a lot of these players, like, because the Division D on a B literally covers the whole of Spain, and there's sort of, they're broken up into regions and stuff. But even the region could be like, you've even potentially got to go to Mallorca, which is a flight. You've got other teams that are all sort of dotted around, so it's not very well structured. They're also looking at restructuring as well. And the last thing on a new system within India, the last thing you want to probably do is the person, like the furthest south has to fly to the furthest north to play,
Yeah.
because, as you said, the funding's not going to be there to support that. How would you foresee would be the best way to divide that up?
So off of conversation, so I view him as a bit of a mentor. Nas Botha, the head coach, he was going rampant the whole camp on this Division 1 preparations about the next steps and how we need to do this. And from the conversations we got to north, south, west, east, and central.
Yeah.
And then also potentially with an additional team, depending on if need be, but mainly with those 5 regions, and then having them all, hash it out so they develop, they'll do their own internal games and
Right.
make selection for the central, like, provincial team, and then the northern, the regional team, and the southern and the western and the eastern. And then from there, so we're looking at having those tiers evolve on its way to the national team, instead of having it go from where you're a club player and then next thing you're in a national camp, and then next thing you have the jersey on and the flag and you're overseas.
Yeah.
So it's just about filling those in between gaps, and getting us to a point where we have you have your district tournaments going on, you have your involved with the club setups and everything. From those tournaments itself, selection is done for the regional team. The regional teams all hash it out, and then from then as well, from the regional teams, then we're making the national selection. Then we know we've had a bit of a filtration system, and it's not necessarily just selection done off of 3 weeks of tournament, and then we say, you know what, this should be enough.
So that would be a little bit similar to sort of where Wales and Ireland are with their provinces and regions and stuff. So you'd obviously have a central. There'd be 4 sort of franchises potentially if they wanted to look at putting sponsorship around them. How would you? What region would you reckon would probably be the strongest if they divided it up into the central, sort of east, west, north, south?
Again, that I love that question. I'm telling you, it's something I plan, that I know I need to do at some point, or at least investigate. I don't know how, but you have to experience it for yourself. But geographically, the physical makeup, it's undeniable. Everybody, like, you see a bit of a mix here and there, like you see somewhat, but genuinely, you can see some distinctive, like, features and makeups of different people from the region. So if I have to pick a region that I more so think is going to be stronger, I'm going northern region. It's if you're looking at Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, if you're looking up there, you're gonna find size. You're gonna find a mix of speed, well-built individuals, and a lot of them are, like, extremely physical, extremely strong. It's definitely north for me in that situation. But at the same time, my secondary team is going to be the east, because the east is then those faster, smaller guys who are definitely going to give those big boys a bit of a challenge if it comes down to, when they're defensively, the big boys are going to have to work a bit harder to grab these smaller, shifty guys.
Wow, that sounds like it could turn out to be probably one of the best division, like the regional team setup by the sounds of it, because there's a lot of teams that obviously it's not quite worked in Wales. Obviously, it lost a lot of the stalwarts. Obviously, that were like, "This is my club. I don't want to follow it." And then the regions have obviously had to fund themselves. But as you say, if there's like a natural geographical markup of what players are going to sort of show, that'll be that sounds like that could turn out to be quite an impressive way it's divided up as well. So what's the sort of the average travel time for that though? That would be still quite sizable. What's like how long would it take to get from North to South India?
So to give you an example, say you're a flight from Kolkata to Thailand is
Yeah.
faster than a flight from Kolkata to Mumbai. So
Right, okay.
so basically it's a lot bigger than people
Yeah,
would
yeah.
perceive. I think a lot of world maps have like made them a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But when you're here and you experience it, you actually see the reach and you see how it takes to get from one side to another. You're looking at about, say, to give you an example, most recently, so my flight from Delhi back here to Odisha. So Delhi is up north, and here I'm about east. It was 3 hours, 3:30, almost 4 hours with a bit of a delay. So 3:30 is what you're looking at, more or less. I would say that would probably come down to the average travel time between the regions.
Most of those regions probably wouldn't have funding for flight costs. Would that also be potentially a concern and an issue, or would they have that allocated, do you think?
I would say I think it comes down to how we put it together. I think
Yeah.
with the whole regional setup, now you're looking at states combining resources.
Yeah.
So then, because now you know that, okay, cool. So yes, we have our internal. So we have our state tournaments where the clubs are hashing it out.
Yeah.
But now within the state, we need to select the best of the best, and we need to now put them into the camp to make selection for the regional team. So then you're going to see what I think we would have a look at is, by combining certain states together, you're going to see them have a bit more of, because some of them might have certain business connections, or they might have better funding, or they might be able to source money a bit better. But one state might be able to offer another something a bit better, as in terms of they can host the camps, or they can look after players' accommodation. So I think for the ultimate success of the overall thing, it's definitely going to take for the region, it's going to take state buy-in. If you get the states working together, and if you have Delhi, Haryana, and Punjab all on the same page saying, look, now we've hashed it out internally. Now the three of us need to combine. We're going to put up a regional team. And now then you start changing the competition changes, because now we were against each other. Now we're with each other. So now we got the next level is now we add all of our resources together, and now we need to go in this direction.
Yeah, that'd be really impressive if it all ties together. Is the general feeling at the minute that will happen? That there's not been much pushback from those sort of states, or is that still in the conversation stage?
That's very much still in the conversation stage, but luckily those conversations were very positively received. Following the Division 1 tournament, the head coach and myself, we did have discussions with the federation, just talking about just reflection of the tournament, and saying how, if we can change a certain few things, or we can do this, we can really have a crack at some of these teams.
Yeah.
We can become one of those household names in Asia for our 15s. In the 7s, you always know we're going to show up, and we're going to be quite a team to watch. But to have that same respect is ideally for any federation. The 15s is your standout piece. Whether you get government funding or not, the 15s is what ultimately gets you respect. It's the union. Everybody knows union is your flagship. It should be.
Yes.
So
that's it. Yeah. So obviously, India have got the IPL in cricket and stuff like that. Could you see that being the eventual target within rugby as well, to bring a bit of exposure and a bit of franchise and a bit more money within regions? Because as you said, like Rajasthan Royals and stuff, they've got big money, able to bring in big players. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight, but could you see that potentially being the end play for rugby within India as well?
I think that could definitely be an exciting prospect.
Yeah,
I think there's great potential for something like that, and I do believe that that's honestly, that's something that could become a career for some people. For a couple players, it could definitely bring in exposure, and
yeah,
it's definitely something that gets people talking. I mean, if you look at the IPL, whether you're in Australia, whether you're
yeah,
in if you're an American cricket fan, if you're from the UK, you know about the IPL,
yeah.
and you know it is in India. So I believe if done correctly, the exact same outcome could definitely befall rugby.
Yeah, because even like bringing in certain players at maybe even towards the twilight of their career, pay them a decent wage similar to the IPL and stuff, and give that exposure, and also retain a certain amount of an Indian squad as well to make sure that the development works as well. I think that could be a really impressive spectacle. Obviously, it's probably not going to happen overnight, but that could be. Obviously, India have made it work pretty well with the IPL, so let's hope they can do it with rugby at some point, or even a sevens option. I think that could even work as well. I think there's many ways to look outside the box, and India have done pretty well leading that with cricket, with the IPL. So there's no sort of whispers of that sort of stuff happening? You've not heard any of that in the corridors of rugby at the minute?
No, our eyes have just been more on our internal stuff.
Yeah,
That would probably end up being more of a private venture.
yeah,
So in terms of us, we're just looking at our local setup. We just know Nepal, Kathmandu, 4 to
yeah,
6 October. We need to show up correct. So
yeah. That'd be
that's more the
awesome.
focus.
Kiano, absolute pleasure having you on, mate. It's been an absolute great time talking to you about where India rugby could be, and where obviously we'll keep in touch with the pod, get you on. As I said, love to be able to get out there and try and come and see it firsthand and show everyone what you've got there as well. So obviously I'll be keeping in touch with you. But thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate everything you've done for jumping on and spreading the word, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Certainly, again, thank you so much for having me. I find myself talking a lot about India. I think you might have to. I just warn you, if you do come here,
Yeah,
just know that the rugby is just infectious over here as it is anywhere else in the world. So just
perfect.
don't pack lightly. Come for a bit of a time and see if you can
Don't worry.
really take it in.
Yeah, the missus has already sold. The kids have already. They're up for it. So you might be able to see us for a few weeks at a time. So that could be quite a
Awesome.
decent trip for everyone to see as well on the pods. Cheers for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Well, that brings this pod to an end. If you made it this far, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening right through and express my gratitude for following yet another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues. So, in today's episode, we found out about how Kiano has managed to work across the spectrum of rugby in India, and where the country has huge ambitions and quite a long history in the game. But obviously, it's really exciting to see where that goes, and we really hope to get out there and see it firsthand in the future. Next week, we've finally managed to get a current pro on, with Joe Batley from the Bristol Bears joining us. We discuss his career, how he managed to get into the game and his progression path, alongside his cancer diagnosis and coming back to now being one of the best second row options we have in the Prem. Once again, a huge thank you to you all. Thank you and goodbye.